Good day and welcome. I'm Rick, a man of history and your guide to the past. Today we're going back to the Middle Ages, probably, for a visit with our taste buds as we sample a regional delicacy, Pope Lady Buns. These are a traditional treat from St Albans, which the St Albans Museum was very kind and provided me with two different recipes for. Now, I've used those recipes as the basis of what I'm making today, along with my own experience of medieval and early modern cooking and food. So hopefully it'll be lovely and tasty. Today is something of an experiment. But before we get stuck into Pope Ladies, a quick aside. You might never have heard of Pope Ladies, but there is another treat which legend says comes from St Albans you'll like to be much more familiar with: Father Rocliffe's buns. These, we're told, were sweet, spiced cakes created by Thomas Rocliffe, a Benedictine monk of St Albans Abbey, to be given to the poor on Good Friday of 1361. This became a tradition which was taken over by the city's bakers after the dissolution of the monasteries, even though Father Rocliffe's recipe had been a closely guarded secret. This didn't stop bakers from claiming to have discovered the old recipe, and during Holy Week in 1851, a St Albans shop was advertising cross buns that were hot from the oven every hour from 4 o'clock on Thursday until 7 on Friday evening. Remember Father Rocliffe's buns, 8 for 6pence. Although there are other theories, it may well have been this specific tradition that became a general custom for Good Friday and for hot cross buns, or not. Now, I discovered these whilst preparing for a school workshop. Popladys were sold originally, it said, on Lady Day, the 25th of March, but that then later moved to the 1st of January. Possibly after New Year's Day was moved from the Feast of the Annunciation to the start of January, but also possibly when the popularity of marking a saint's feast days, even that of the Virgin Mary, fell with the English Reformation. A change of date was simply appropriate. However, the 1st of January, as well as being New Year's Day under the Gregorian calendar, was also celebrated during medieval times as Pope Lady Day, the feast of the probably mythical Pope Joan, hence Pope Lady or Pop Lady, presumably at least. Pope Joan was supposedly a woman who, disguised as a man, rose through the Catholic Church to the very crown, to the papacy, and she was a popular figure who was later frowned on by the Church. Perhaps this was a safer time to celebrate these edible lady icons, both politically and religiously. According to legend, a noble lady and her attendants were caught one night on the way to St Albans. The road was difficult and dangerous, but the light shining from the then new clock tower in the centre of the city enabled the party to find their way safely. In gratitude, the lady left money to fund giving food to the poor on Lady Day, including small cakes in the shape of a woman. However, there is no actual surviving evidence for Popladys, always spelt Popladys, apparently. There's no evidence of them being distributed during the medieval period. However, in 1819, a traveller reported in a letter: I happened to sleep at St Albans on the night of the 31st December last, and was awakened early the next day by a confused noise of boys and girls in the street crying for sale, "Pop ladies, pop ladies." Inquiring at breakfast time the meaning of these words, I was informed that it was an ancient practice in the town to cry out and sell in the streets and in the bakers' shops on New Year's Day a species of cake or bun called pop lady, one of which was brought unto me. The cake the man described was long and narrow, rudely resembling a human figure, with 2 dried raisins or currants to represent eyes and another for the mouth, the lower part being formed rather like the outer case of an Egyptian mummy. But regardless of whether these were a 19th century treat or something that had a medieval origin, you've heard enough from me. Time to head inside, hand over to an expert and get cooking. Said to be a traditional seasonal treat from the town of St Albans, Pope Ladies are a spiced and glazed bread or cake. Being a bread, yeast is an important part of this, and you'll need somewhere warm to allow your yeast-filled dough to rise. Begin by making a yeast mix. Dissolve your dried yeast with warmed water or with warmed milk if you prefer, or if you're using live yeast, if you're using wet yeast, you've already got a lovely wet mix. Then you're going to want to stir in some sugar, and stir it around until it starts to bubble. Once mixed, put your mixture to one side and get your flour. You're going to want to add your spices to the flour and mix them well. I'm using salt. This is sea salt, fully granulated. It gives some lovely texture, some cinnamon and plenty of nutmeg, although you may prefer to alter the recipe to your own personal tastes. Next time I do this, I'll add plenty of ginger because that's my favourite. Once introduced, give your spices and flour a good mix to get them all nicely into one mixture. Next, all you need to do is to rub in your butter. This is easiest if you've already got your butter in smaller pieces, and you will need to be able to wash your hands afterwards as it gets quite messy. You'll then want to break an egg. Make sure not to get any shell in. Nobody wants that in their sweet treats. And then mix in your yeast mixture. This should be bubbling away. There should be a nice little head on it. And just mix it all together. Now add in whatever dried fruit you're going to be using. This should traditionally be currants and sultanas, but unfortunately I don't actually have any in my supplies at the moment. There's none in my stores, so I'm using blueberries. Now luckily for me, I much prefer blueberries, but this will change the taste and something of the texture of the original, so I shall have to make another batch. I'm not a big fan of currants and sultanas, but luckily I have access to people who do find them very pleasant. We have all of the ingredients now together in the bowl. So what we're going to do is stir it up, make it into a very good soft dough. Once you've stirred it, you're going to need to switch to using your hands and knead it. Do this either on a well-floured board and then add it to a bowl and cover it, or just as I am, in the bowl. Even though it's not actually cooking yet, you are starting to get a delicious array of scents, and it's starting to smell a little bit like Christmas. And part of that, of course, is the cinnamon and the nutmeg. There's nothing so festive as those two spices, but the blueberries are giving it a really delicious, sweet-smelling, fruity nose. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how these taste. Once your dough is well formed, all of your ingredients are well mixed, you should have a fine dough. But it's not yet ready for cooking. So you want to cover it in a bowl, leave it covered and leave it to rise. In a warm kitchen, this might take an hour or so, but if it's cold, then it may take all night. So make sure you have it in a nice warm kitchen if you've got that option. Well, my dough is proved, it's ready to go, so it's time to make some Popladys. Divide the dough into equal portions. These should be big enough to fill a belly, but small enough to fit into the hand. They're individual portions and they need to be shaped like ladies. Now, traditionally, these are ovals which taper to a point and smaller pieces forming into a head at the top and arms. The traditional description says that you should put currants for the eyes and for the mouth, which I'm not going to do, in part because I have no currants, but I might try and see if I can do something with blueberries instead. Once formed, lay your Popladys out on trays ready for baking, but be aware they will expand. You'll want to leave them for 30 minutes to an hour to prove once more. Whilst proving, heat your oven. It should be fairly hot, and you want to cook them for something like 15 to 25 minutes. It's going to depend on your particular oven as to how long it takes. Whilst the Popladys are in the oven, it's time to make a glaze. Heat up some milk in a saucepan. You want it warm, not hot, not boiling, and grind up some sugar. Once it's ready, stir in your sugar to the milk and mix it until it's lovely and liquid. Well, here they are. Not bad for a first effort, I hope you'll agree. These just need to be glazed and then left to cool, and then we can get to the important part of tasting them. So your sugary milk glaze is just going to go over the top. You want a nice even coverage as well as you can. As you can see, I'm using a spoon and also my fingers, but you might prefer to use a pastry brush or a piece of damp towel or damp cloth. Here they are, fresh out of the oven, and as you can see, they're perhaps a little big and perhaps a little misshapen and not really looking very much like ladies, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and we have at least one lady who has two eyes and a mouth. So I'll just glaze these and then hopefully they'll taste lovely. Well, it's had chance to cool. My ladies have been on a rack, and as you can just about see, they're not looking bad, I think, for a first effort, so I'm quite happy with that. The proof of the pudding, though, is in the eating, so let's give it a try, see what they're like. Well, how are they? Yes, very good. Now, as you can probably see, it is quite bready, and it certainly has a bread-like taste. But I'm getting the salt, I can taste that very clearly, and the spices come through lovely as well. I do think the bit of ginger would add a little special something, but I'm a big fan of ginger, so perhaps that's no real surprise. It's sweet, but it's only just sweet enough. So for those who have a very sweet tooth, I would suggest putting some more sugar in, or eating it with some honey, because what this strikes me as being very pleasant with would just be cutting it open and eating it with some butter. Overall, I think this is very good. Yes. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. If you do try and make these at home, do feel free to let me know how it went, and also feel free to let the St Albans Museum know too. I'm sure they'd be interested to know if their traditional regional delicacy is spreading further afield. As always, if there's another part of our shared past that interests you, or there's a topic or a theme you'd like me to address, please tell me in the comments and I'll see what I can do. If you'd like to try other tastes of the past though, do let me know, and feel free to check out some of my other videos. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter or on Instagram. Meanwhile, if you like this video, please like it. If you found it interesting, please share it. And if you'd like to join me again in the past, please subscribe for more. Until next time, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.